Namo Amida Buddha. The way to faith. Listening deeply to Amida Dharma. What can we do in order to receive faith or Shinran? We should listen deeply to the teaching about Amida's undiscriminatory salvation until we understand it and accept it with our mind and heart. Master Rennyo said, quote, "Regardless of our doubts, if we listen intently with our entire being, we will be given Shinran because of great compassion. The Buddha's teaching begins and ends in hearing." End quote. So, in our tradition, listening to the teaching is the most important practice. You have to listen again and again, and one day you will become open enough so as to entrust completely to Amida Buddha. The words, "we will be given Shinran because of great compassion," shows that Shinran comes from Amida, as I explained in the previous chapter. But the first part, if we listen intently with our entire being, shows what we have to do if we wish to receive the gift of faith from Amida. There is a good poem on this. Quote, "Uncover your cup to receive the Dharma rain, then faith and the Nembutsu will naturally arise." End quote. If one does not listen deeply to the teaching, but is filled with ideas of self-power or keeps oneself under the influence of various non-Buddhist religions, he cannot receive Shinran, nor say the genuine Nembutsu, which is the natural manifestation of Shinran. Faith and Nembutsu are not forcibly imposed in our hearts by Amida Buddha. So if somebody does not show interest in the Buddhist teaching, and especially in the teaching about the Primal Vow of Amida, he cannot receive Shinran. Here are some examples of listening deeply to Amida Dharma. Think that solving the matter of repeated births and deaths is the most important thing in your life. Put aside all Buddhist or non-Buddhist teachings, philosophies, and opinions, and listen. Remember, reading is also listening only to Amida Dharma. Put aside what you think you know and listen to what Amida Dharma has to say. Empty your cup, your mind, of your so-called personal wisdom and stay open to receive the nectar of Dharma. Consider that you know nothing and that Amida Dharma knows everything. Read the most simple and essential text of our school. Listen with a devotional mind and heart. Listen again and again, that is constantly, in the manner described above. Ask questions if you have doubts or if there is something that you do not understand. Study the answers carefully and without hurry, and ask again if you need to. Engage in a Dharma dialogue, but not debates, with people who are already established in faith and who do not embrace wrong views. Think on the testimony of Shakyamuni himself and of so many wonderful masters like Nagarjuna, Vasubandhu, Shan-tao, Honen, Shinran, Rennyo, etc., who accepted the existence of Amida Buddha and the reality of his salvation. Always ask Amida Buddha for guidance, bow to him, and say his name even if you are not yet established in faith. No matter how many doubts you have or how awkward it might be at the beginning, find some time to sit with Amida Buddha and ask him for guidance. Give a chance to the idea that he and his salvation are real. You really have nothing to lose if you accept Amida's salvation. On the contrary, you gain everything. You will be born in the Pure Land at the end of this life and become a Buddha. Your suffering in the repeated births and deaths will be over. And you will be fully capable of truly helping others, especially your dear ones. Please also meditate on what you have to lose if you do not accept the existence of Amida Buddha and the reality of his salvation. The chance you now have to be in a human body and listen to Amida Dharma might not be met in thousands and thousands of lives. So, just give it a try and do the above things for some time. Question, quote, "What is the difference between Dharma discussions and debates?" End quote. Answer, If people have different religious standards, they cannot have a true Dharma discussion. For me, the words of the sutras and the masters are supreme. The story told by Shakyamuni Buddha about Amida Buddha is the true Dharma, while for others, the Dharma is a continuous process of change and adaptation to their unenlightened minds, personal beliefs, or opinions. So what can we talk or debate about? I accept the actual and literal existence of Amida Buddha and his Pure Land, while they think of them as metaphors, symbols, or even compare Amida with a fictional character. It is like we live on different planets. What can we really discuss about? The truth is that unless one is ready to empty his cup of personal interpretations, there is no reason to talk with him or her about Amida Dharma. The karma of some fake followers is simply not ripe for true listening, as even when they read or hear the Dharma, they listen only to the noise of their own minds. They have no devotion and treat the Dharma like property, not like the supreme medicine given by the Buddha. So what can we talk or debate about? I have always said it and will continue to say it. The Amida Dharma is not debatable because it is the Dharma. You can debate on any worldly matter and agree or disagree, change this or that, etc. But you cannot debate on the Dharma because the Dharma is the supramundane path taught by the Buddha. As long as you do not have a supramundane mind or enlightened mind, you are in no position to debate or change the Dharma. Unenlightened beings should instead approach the Amida Dharma with awe, devotion, and faith, as Shakyamuni instructed us to accept his largest sutra. Quote, "You should single-heartedly accept in faith, uphold and chant this sutra, and practice in accordance with its teachings." End quote. Mind you, Jodo Shinshu is not a Dharma gate of smart koans or of doubting everything until you reach Satori or enlightenment, but the Dharma gate of faith. Please do not confuse the various Dharma gates taught by the Buddha, because what applies to one Dharma gate does not apply to another. The various teachings of self-power schools do not apply to the Dharma gate of the Pure Land, where the key element is listening with devotion and accepting in faith. If one really thinks that this Dharma gate is not for him, it is better to leave it than trying to transform it to suit his doubts. As a priest, I am always ready to help, and I want so much to help others receive faith, but I cannot help those who do not want to hear the Dharma as it is. I mean, as it was taught by Shakyamuni and the Masters. I cannot help people who lack devotion to hear and understand a Dharma gate which is based on devotion and faith. As Shinran said, quote, "It is also beyond my powers to correct others who do not have the same mind. Since people are not of the same mind, it is useless to say one thing or another." End quote. Far from me to say that people with doubts should not approach Amida Dharma. On the contrary, they should and must approach it. But while acknowledging their doubts, they must accept that the Dharma is what Shakyamuni and the Masters taught, and resist their tendency to change it because they doubt it. I am available anytime and ready to help and support people with doubts if they have the will to listen and solve those doubts, but I cannot help people with both doubts and arrogance. The first can be saved because although they have doubts, they are in a learning mood, and they accept that the Dharma is different from their personal opinions, while the latter cannot be saved because they think the Dharma should be changed to accommodate their doubts or personal opinions. The first want to discuss about the Dharma, while the latter want only debates, that is, to promote their egocentric visions to others. Master Shinran and Rennyo encouraged sincere Dharma discussions in which people can acknowledge their doubts, choose between true and wrong understanding, and be helped to receive faith. But they were against debates where only the noise of ego can be heard. Here are a few well-known passages for reflection. Quote, "Each of those lacking faith should by all means raise their doubts and discuss what it is to have faith or be without it. In brief, It is essential that each of those lacking faith have discussions of faith with one another from now on. Quote, the meetings are occasions when, even if only once a month, just those who practice the Nembutsu should at least gather in the meeting place and discuss their own faith and the faith of others. Recently, however, because matters of faith are never discussed in terms of right and wrong, the situation is deplorable beyond words. In conclusion, there must definitely be discussions of faith from now on among those at the meetings, for this is how we are to attain birth in the true and real land of utmost bliss. End quote. Quote, what I've been saying to you, all of you, for many years past has not changed. Simply achieve your birth, firmly avoiding all scholarly debate. End quote. Also, Shinran related the contrast between Master Honen's encounter with people open to Amida Dharma and those having their minds closed and focused on debates. Quote, I remember him, that is Master Honen, smile and say as he watched humble people of no intellectual pretensions coming to visit him. Without doubt their birth is settled. And I heard him say after a visit by a man brilliant in letters and debating, I really wonder about his birth. To this day, these things come to mind. End quote. Clearly, those who are focused on debates do not even think there is something wrong with their understanding, so for them there are no doubts to be solved. According to Rennyo Shonin, they are in the category of those who lack good from the past. In one of his letters, he describes such people as false followers, which are incapable to detach themselves from their wrong views. Quote, these days, as in the past, it seems that many of those who call themselves followers of the Buddha Dharma and extol and proclaim the teaching in various places in the provinces are themselves not truly grounded in the right teaching of our tradition. When we ask the reason for this, the answer is that, in the first place, although they act as if they knew the Buddha Dharma in depth, no part of their understanding has been gained from authentic sources. Some have heard the teaching quite by chance, from the edge of a veranda or from outside a sliding door. Their aspiration for the Buddha Dharma is in truth shallow, and they think there is no one who knows better than they what the Buddha Dharma is all about. Consequently, when they happen to see people who proclaim our tradition's right teaching in the correct manner, they cling persistently to their own biased views. End quote. And with whom the Amida Dharma should not be discussed, much less debated. Quote, when we consider presenting our tradition's other power faith, we must first distinguish between the people who have good from the past and those who lack good from the past. For, however long ago a person may have listed his name as a participant in this tradition, it will be difficult for one who lacks good from the past to attain faith. Indeed, faith will of itself be decisively settled in the person for whom past good has unfolded. And so, when we discuss the two kinds of practices, right and sundry, in the presence of people who lack good from the past, this may lay the foundation for slander, contrary to what one would expect. To teach extensively in the presence of ordinary people without understanding this principle of the presence or absence of good from the past is in total opposition to our tradition's rules of conduct. Hence, the larger sutra says, if a person lacks roots of good, he will not be able to hear the sutra. And to hear the sutra and to sustain faith are the most difficult of all difficulties. Nothing surpasses these difficulties. End quote. It is clear now why the modernists or so-called progressive Buddhists cannot accept the story of Amida Buddha in the larger sutra, and why they call Amida a myth, a metaphor, a symbol, or a fictional character. It is clear why they cannot take into consideration the fact that all the audience gathered together at the Vulture Peak to hear this sutra actually saw Amida Buddha and his Pure Land. Quote, I have expounded this teaching or sutra for the sake of sentient beings and enabled you to see Amateus or Amida and all in his land. Strive to do what you should. After I've passed into nirvana, do not allow doubt to arise. End quote. Indeed, what can be said to such people, and what debates or so-called discussions can a person of true faith really have with them? We should clearly follow the advice of our masters and step aside, letting them experience the full extent of their wrong attitude in the hope that one day, better sooner than later, they will realize their mistakes and enter that learning mode which will help them to solve their doubts. Believe me that I engage many times in endless talks with closed minds, trying to open them like one opens a sealed tin can. Instead of helping, our so-called discussion became more and more a foundation for slander, as Rennyo described it on their part. When one does not realize he needs help and does not ask for help in solving his doubts, no amount of scholarly or wise debates will make his mind open. So again, my heart advice is this: stay away from debates, and if you are a teacher, try your best to help those who really want to be helped. Namo Amida Buddha.